President Donald Trump has signed 4 executive orders, all aimed at cutting prescription drug prices in the US. The move allows prescription drugs to be imported from Canada and other countries where prices are cheaper. The President says this affects insulin and EpiPens, and it will, quote, completely restructure the prescription drug market in the US. Well, according to a 2019 report by the OECD group of industrialized nations, the US spends roughly twice the average amount on pharmaceuticals per head. In 2015, that was $1,162, whereas in the UK, for example, only $497 on average was spent per person, despite having similar levels of prescription drug use. Well, Gerald Posner is an investigative journalist and author of PHARMA Greed, Lies and the Poisoning of America. As you can see, he's in Miami, Florida. Thanks very much for talking to us.
Good to be with you.
So these executive orders taken by Donald Trump, what do you make of those to start with?
You know, they're better than nothing, but it's a bit like if you had a motorway accident and you took the victim into a casualty ward and they had a traumatic, terrible head injury, and the doctor's first line would be, well, let's give them some paracetamol. It's better than nothing, but it's not a very great fix. They're certainly not momentous. And if you woke me up and said, by the way, he's just signed 4 executive orders to lower drug prices, I hear lower drug prices. I know we're in election season. This has happened for 60 years in America. Politicians do a good talk when it gets near the presidential elections, but pharma has always been able to beat these back eventually.
And just briefly, why is that? Why the high prices in America?
It's remarkable to those of us who believe that there should be some fairness in drug pricing. This is the only country on the planet, the United States, that allows drug companies unfettered pricing power. In every other country, in the UK with the NHS and in the rest of Europe and in other nations, you're smart enough to negotiate the prices so you have a fair price. Yet here, it's whatever the market will bear. And if it's too high, insurance companies won't pay for it, but the government doesn't do anything to bring them down. And as a result, as you said, not only do we pay twice as much as European countries for health care, but on prescription drugs in particular, we pay 3 to 10 times more for the very same drug than what's marketed abroad. It's absolute madness.
Well, the drug companies themselves say they don't want this state intervention.
Yeah, of course, they've successfully used the argument. They started in the early 1960s. They said, oh, we don't want to become socialists. We don't want what the NHS has, for instance, that's run by the government. We aren't socialists, we're capitalists. And that may have worked in the middle of the Cold War, and they still continue to use that argument today, although it has less power. What they use constantly is the refrain that if you control our prices and bring them down in America, we won't be able to do all the razzle-dazzle, the great research, and spend the billions of dollars inside the laboratories to come up with the cures for the cancers and the diseases of the next generation. But guess what? If you look at the revenues for the top 10 companies in the world, they spend more on average every year on promotion, advertising, and stock buybacks than they do on drug research. So I always say, do a little less on promotion, a little fewer on stock buybacks, and you'll have plenty of time for promotion, for research inside the lab.
So what would you like to see Donald Trump or whoever else is in charge, what would actually do?
There was a pretty good bill from Congress last year, from the Democratic part of Congress in December. It got nowhere because it didn't get past the Senate. It would be aggressive in terms of doing 2 things, not just negotiating prices. You can't do that unless you have a hammer. The hammer is you've got to say to drug companies, as you do in the UK, if you can't show us that the price of your drug is cheaper than what it would cost to treat this person in the healthcare system, then we're not going to pay for it. You have to make them meet that hurdle, and we don't do that here. So it's a 2-prong attack. It can be done if politicians have political will. They just haven't in the past. Maybe they will in a new administration.
Okay. Well, really interesting, fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on and explaining that to us, Gerald Posner. Thank you.